right, we're live.
Awesome. What's up, guys? Shawn Bowen, Full Circle Investment Group, and wholesalingoutofthebox.com. Getting here and doing our lunchtime live with you. Coming in at 1 o'clock today. Got stuck on some calls, but regardless, staying consistent. Always part of one of the statements I like to use is either you're consistent or non-existent. So we're always going to be here for you guys and keep these things going. So today we're going to talk about one of the other buying offer tactics / abilities is owner finance and what that looks like and how to structure it. And just a quick talk on that. So guys, remember, as you're coming on here, let us know where you're coming in from right over in the comment section. If you want to go live during these talks, I'd love to do that as well. But yeah, let us know where you're coming from. Let us know where you see the stream. And for those that are listening later, either on the podcast or the replay, always please leave us comments and let us know if this was helpful. If it's completely wrong, you want to do it a separate way and you have some ideas, like love that stuff, right? So this is stuff that we use. It's been successful with us in a business and it's really been helpful. So owner finance, what is it? This is where the owner of the property is going to take in this case, we'll call it purchase price. I'm just going to use $100,000 as the number and say that they want $100,000 for the property, but it doesn't make sense to take that today because either you're going to use it as a fix and flip, and then you have to pay that off at the end of the note. And the note would be the time frame of which it's allowed to happen in. So either a 1-year time frame, 5-year time frame, whatever the time is, right? And then it doesn't make sense today, right? But maybe it makes sense as you structure it with the monthly payment in order to be able to pay it off, but there's money coming in. And then typically the benefit for the owner is that it's not as high of a tax penalty. Let me stop here and say my disclaimer of I'm not a tax attorney and I'm not giving tax advice, but the idea here is that if it's done over that 1-year time frame, it should affect the tax accounting stuff. So yeah, the idea here is that the seller gets their price and the buyer, as being you, allows you to have some flexibility in income and not having to bring so much money to the table. So all this usually works out, and it is usually the highest or the closest way to get what the seller wants based on structuring owner finance, because it's a long-term play, right? It's payments over time. So again, guys, while you're coming on here and watching, please, there's a link in there you can click on, and we'll let us see who you are commenting over there to us. And this, again, if you're just joining us, this is owner finance today, and we're talking about how you're structuring it and what it looks like, and how we do that. One of the things I'm going to recommend, and I don't know if you guys will be able to see it here, but the apps that I use is Easy Calculators, and I'm on iPhone. So if you guys are seeing this or hearing this, it's Easy Calculators that has a bunch of different type of calculators, but a loan calculator is one of the main ones. And then the other one that I use is just called the loan calculator. And then that allows you to figure out what your loan amount is, what the interest rate is, and what that monthly payment is. So there's 4 pieces in this one calculator that if you leave one out, it will calculate the other for you. And then on the other calculator, you're trying to figure out what your principal, interest, taxes, and insurances, or maybe you just structure principal payments, and then maybe you structure interest payments. So it just depends on what you guys agree to. So the way I'm going to look at this is, how do you put this together over time, and how do you put this together to figure out interest rates? Let's say if you're trying to reverse engineer it. So on the first one, I'm going to use $100,000 as the number, and that's what the seller wants, making to where $100,000 makes sense, but it's going to be in let's say a 30-year capacity. Okay. So just like your normal mortgage terms, it's the price, the interest, and the time frame in which it's done. Right. So $100,000. Let's say that you want to go 360 months, and your payment can't be more than, let's say, $400 a month. Okay. So as of now, with just principal and interest, if you did that, that would be 2.58 is the interest rate at $400 a month on a fixed 30-year term. To make it $100,000 would be paid off completely with just principal and interest. Now, again, keep in mind that if this is in the home situation like it normally is, you've got to equate taxes and insurance. So that's the other calculator, right? And guys, hopefully I'm not losing you. This is some real nerdy stuff, but it's one of those things that you'll learn and you'll get better with, and it really helps you understanding how to structure deals and how to create this financing to talk to sellers of why it doesn't make sense, so that you truly can have a number at the end of the day that works for you and the seller, right? Ultimately here, owner finances is, Mr. Seller, I can't give you $100,000 today because that property is not worth it, but I could give it to you over the next 30 years. And maybe I put a balloon in it and say that it's due in 10, right? So, how do you calculate those payments? And you say, I'm going to pay $300 a month. There is no interest involved. And I'm going to just do some quick math here. So 300 times 12 months, that's $3,600 a year. And then you're going to take $3,600 a year over, let's just say 10 years. So then you paid in $36,000. So just flat numbers. That's what you've paid into at the time. And then, of course, if you add interest into it, that factors into an amortization chart. And then now you get into taxes and insurance in order to back into that and be able to pay the taxes on it, insurance on it, but make sure that the owner gets their principal and interest over the time that you agreed to. So I'll go into the other calculator here in a second, but see if anybody's in here. Guys, if you're coming in and talk, or you're coming in and watching us, love to talk to people live. Love to help answer questions if I can. So if you guys are having any questions here, I haven't put you to sleep yet, come on and go live with us. But this is some really helpful stuff when you're trying to structure things to a seller, and try to keep it simple. Tons and tons of YouTube videos out there. I've read books on this for years. I've had guys help teach me how to do it. And then I've actually structured some deals that we do this with, and they're really good once you understand how to structure the numbers and put them together. So again, owner financing, seller's asking for $100,000. You say, great, I'll give that to you over the course of 30 years, and you haven't even discussed interest yet, if that even gets brought up. How do you back into that, right? So $100,000 divided by, you're paying $300 a month. That's basically 333 payments. That's short and sweet without getting too detailed. That's what your numbers are coming into, that you're going to have to make 333 payments at $300. All right. So then how many years does that equate to, and backing into that math. Okay. So quick and easy. As I say it, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So guys, one of the things that I wanted to go back into was the other calculator, which is how you calculate your taxes and insurance. So a rough estimate, this is the advanced calculator that is under the Easy Calculator app. And I'm just going to put this loan amount in and say it's the same thing for $100,000. And let's just say you discuss interest rate of 7%. You do it on 30-year terms. And the property tax being that you look up that tax for today, and then add that into this equation. So let's just say at $100,000, it'll be $1,000 a year. And let's say an insurance policy on that property is going to be, let's just say $1,100. And then you'll calculate that. So what'll happen is what we had come up with a interest payment and taxes and insurance comes to $804.30. Of that, we're going to pull back and figure out how much is broken down for taxes and how much is broken down for interest, how much is broken down for principal, right? So that is what PITI stands for. So principal, interest, taxes, and insurance is PITI or PITI is what we say. And that's what you're equating. You're understanding how to get to these numbers, right? And then when you amortize that out, you can see what interest is be paying up front. So let's say your interest would be 583.33, your principal will be 81.97, and then you back into the rest of that, which is what breaks down for taxes and insurance, and you have to break that out into it. So if your $1,000 is what you equated, $1,000 divided by 12 months, that would be 83.33 to tax bill of that 840. And then the same thing, which would be to the insurance. So that's 83.33 in insurance taken off. That's the amount total. And now you take that out and you have your principal and interest. Okay. So this is where these are gone into accounts, and then they're accrued, and then they're paid out over a quarter basis. And then, of course, however your insurance is structured with your insurance person that you've written that policy with. So, all right. So $100,000, and I could show this to you guys here, but it's going to be hard for you guys listening. So these are the calculators that I'm talking about, and these have been very helpful, guys, in structuring deals and structuring notes to sellers, and then ultimately getting that into a deed of trust to secure the property, and then have that over to your attorney, puts that together for you, records the DOT, which is the deed of trust, and then there's a note separate recorded that secures the owner and their position. So all of that, a little more detailed into that and how that's structured, but ultimately it's how are you backing into owner finance, which is the seller today says we're using $100,000 as a number, and you figured out that without, let's go back to this calculator, and we'll just do principal and interest. Let's say $100,000 at 360 months. Let's say you, because it's only 2%, let's just say they agreed at 5. Then you would have 360 payments, which would be 5% interest over $100,000. So you would pay a total of $193. And let me show you this, guys. So again, you can see the note here, the monthly payment, the loan amount, how many months, and then the interest rate, and then total amount paid if you ran this entire life term. And then backing into these numbers to make sure that this works for you based on what you either can lease option it out for, rent to own, or what you can turn around and do with maybe like a bridge loan. If you structured it to where it was $100,000 and you made payments for so much, and then you came in and did rehab work on it, I would say quick numbers, maybe it's a $250,000 retail times 75% would be $187,000. 187 says that you have $50,000 in rehab. So 187 minus 50 gets you into the 137. So that means you couldn't be all into the property for more than $137,000, but yet the owner is willing to take back $100,000 because that's what makes sense. You know, it works for the deal. So if you structure this, there should be roughly, with some sales costs taken out of that, you should have about 30-ish grand left over after paying off the lender or the owner finance situation to the owner when you pay off your DOT and you pay back your rehab loan. So try to stop here for a second, guys. Like I said, some of this can be pretty mind-numbing, and I know like it can be pretty boring listening to, but man, you guys really understand the power that it is into structuring these deals. Becomes very helpful and knowing how to talk with a seller and why does it make sense to do it this way versus a cash offer today because it's lower, because you have to pay interest on your money. Does this work for a buy and hold situation to where you're going to cash flow it, make money from the tenant, be able to pay your taxes and insurance plus your principal and interest and make cash flow really. And then what's your cash on cash return? You know, if you're making, let's say $10,000 a year or $5,000 a year, and you only had to come in at, 10 grand, what's that return on your, or what's a cash on cash return? And it's pretty high. You reverse engineer these numbers. So understanding why owner finance is to be structured in the way it is, how to structure it with a seller based on terms. And what does that sound like? So a simple one would be, maybe you're going to do this in the short term of a bridge loan, right? You're going to use it to come in, rehab the property, and then pay the seller off on the back end because they took back $100,000. So in this case, we said the house was going to be worth $250,000. The $100,000 didn't make sense today in a cash offer because it would have been lower because you had to pay interest on that $100,000. And now you can come in and say, cool, I'll pay $100,000 and it'll be done in a 12-month phase, right? Or maybe it gets done in 6 months. It's a better return to them, no matter what they're secure. So this is, it's very creative. Understanding how to structure these is with these apps of the the easy loan calculator is one app that I use. And then the loan calculator is another app that I use. And guys, if you can see these online, on pictures, let's try to show you guys. But these are the two that I use, the three: calculator, easy calculator, and loan calculator. And then the information that gets put into these is here. So on the advanced calculator, that's what this looks like. Okay. And then over on the other loan calculator, this is the one that's got 4 entries, of which if one is missing, it replaces and or gives you the other one. So in this case, I used $100,000 and it said 5% interest at 360 months, that my monthly payment would be $536.82. That structure is if you told the owner you wanted to do this at $100,000, but you wanted your monthly payment to be X amount of dollars, or interest and time. And then that's how you came up with that monthly payment. The one that I think I see a lot of people doing is they're taking out the interest rate and saying like, hey, I'm okay with paying $300 a month, and trying to figure out what the interest rate is based on that payment, those terms. That's one that really helps a lot, right? So this was the old HP calculators back in the day, where you had to have all these terms and numbers and know which buttons to press, versus these calculators help it a lot easier, make it a lot simpler. So guys, I hope this is helpful. Again, for those that are watching now or watching later, appreciate you taking the time to hang out. Some really nerdy stuff, but pretty powerful in the compounding effect as far as interest goes, and then understanding how to structure these things with taxes and insurance, and obviously how to run amortization charts. Really, really mind numbing, but when you understand it and you take the time to learn it, really worth the time. So always, if you're interested in working with us on something like that, feel free to talk to us on wholesalingoutofthebox.com, or jump in here and leave us a comment about what you have questions on, or maybe you can correct me in some things that I missed here. I would love to. I'm always learning, guys. But for the stuff we've done, this has worked really well, and we've gotten some pretty good results out of it. So again, I know can't probably finish up a little bit earlier today. One of the things I did want to bring up for you guys, though, was that we do have a skip tracing service that we're playing in beta testing. So we're going to leave that here for you guys somewhere for the link. We're talking 10 cents a skip. I think most of the ones online I'm hearing are 15, 20, and 30, and not really having a really good hit ratio. We have a 93% return rate. That's really good. So I would say if you're interested, we'll leave a link to where you guys can try that, and it takes about a day to turn it around. Again, this is something that we've been working on. We're getting good results, so we're trying to offer it out, and help you guys with doing some skip tracing as well. So for those that have stuck around this long and didn't fall asleep, I appreciate it. For those that are watching the replay, I really appreciate it. We talked about owner finance today. We talked about structuring the deal on these calculators for, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. amortization charts and kind of like what that looks like and how to use those pieces. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys today. I really appreciate you taking the time to hang out. And as always, guys, if there's ever anything you need from us, reach out to us, PM me, go to wholesalingoutofthebox.com and check us out there. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Talk to you soon.